It's confusing women because they don't have anyone to be attracted to. It's a disaster.
There's no one left to be attracted to. Like, we woke up one day and we're like, right, today we've decided as a society that masculine men are bad and they should be banned. And women who like them are like, oh, we're going to have to marry some sort of feminine man and that's going to ruin our relationship and he's going to drop out of the workforce. Hello, lovely people. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you are new. My name is Emma and have I got a belter for you today from Fox News. Yes, I have some brand new and shocking news straight from Mikhaila Peterson, daughter of Jordan Peterson, one of my favourite people, and not just because he sounds like Kermit the Frog.
Your room, put it in order. In most households, there's 100 things that could be done to just make it less hideous and horrible.
Peterson, as in Mikhaila Peterson, joined Fox and Friends Weekend, which I guess is a show of theirs, to talk about the factors contributing to the decline in men participating in the workforce, which I thought was an interesting topic of conversation anyway. My probably foolish understanding of it was that people in general were leaving the workforce at sort of a higher rate, and a lot of that was from COVID. I guess I'm stupid and wrong because actually the reason is that women are making men feel stupid or something like that. So we'll hear it from Mikhaila so we can get the facts right. Good old Fox News. It should be stressed, in case anyone is unfamiliar with Fox, that Fox News is an entertainment service. It explicitly refers to itself as an entertainment and not a news service. I think it should not be allowed, therefore, to call itself Fox News and to portray itself as a news service because they frame themselves with all of the markers of a news show so that the uninformed think that they are a news show. Because of course you would think that. It's only reasonable for a normal person to turn on Fox News, see something that looks like the news and think, oh, that must be the news. Gosh, the news is shocking. In reality, it is an entertainment show, and thus they are not held to the strict standards of news reporting. So it's always important to remind people of that up front when we're talking about Fox News, because people do believe in it as though it is the gospel truth. Before we jump in, I'm just going to have a quick Google of Mikhaila Peterson, because other than being Jordan Peterson's daughter, I'm interested in what her qualifications are on this topic. How is she an expert to bring in on the discussion of men leaving the workforce? Her website lists her as CEO, podcaster, lifestyle and diet blogger, which doesn't fill me with confidence as to her qualifications. I use the Mikhaila Peterson podcast as a chance to talk to thought leaders. Thought leaders is such a bizarre term that has cropped up lately. I really wish we would just go back to the days of talking to experts about topics that they are experts on, rather than being like, you're incredibly rich and influential. What do you think about this random topic you know nothing about? This is like why we keep asking people like Stephen Fry about women's issues. And like, what? We need to stop doing that. So Fox, I guess, has decided that Mikhaila Peterson is an expert on, or at least she's the right person to talk to about the workforce. I wonder if she's ever been, like, has she ever been a member of the everyday workforce? Or has she always done her own thing as a CEO? She's the CEO of Luminate Productions, Inc. So, yeah, all of her experience on her LinkedIn is managing her own company, Luminate, being the founder of Lion Diet, and then it's all Luminate. It's all just Luminate. But she did study on psychology and classics, which is an interesting combination, and then did 2 years of biological and biomedical sciences. So it seems like she's probably pretty qualified in the diet area. Luminate is Jordan Peterson's company, so that's not it. So she's been managing her daddy's company. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say it like that. It's demeaning. That's not fair of me. But she has been managing her father's company, or she has been in an executive role in whatever capacity. It doesn't seem like, according to her LinkedIn at least, that she's ever had a job outside of that. So I think it's interesting for her to comment on the workforce, especially because her qualifications aren't in that area either. TLDR. Not qualified to talk about this thing at all. Good job, Fox News. But, you know, they like Jordan Peterson. This kind of ultra-conservative also really likes stereotypically attractive young white women. So anytime they find one of those who speaks to their talking points, they really go gung-ho on promoting them. That is just part of the method. I don't know what to tell you. If you watch like really right-wing conservative media in the US, you will see so many women that look like Mikhaila. Not that there's anything wrong with being an attractive young white woman. It's just that it kind of, after a while, they start to all blend into each other, you know? It's like the same person over and over again. They really like those kind of people. Let's see what she has to say with her valuable expertise on men leaving the workforce.
The number of independent women is on the rise in America, but what about the missing men? More than 7 million men ages 25 to 54 have dropped out of the workforce just this past year.
Okay, I would like to point out that because of the global pandemic, a lot of businesses couldn't operate at normal capacity, and tons of employers let employees go. So it feels like the wrong time to talk about this statistic because I'm pretty sure COVID is going to be the main part of that. Especially because what are more young male dominated areas, things like construction, stuff like that couldn't happen, that got put on hold for COVID. We'll let them give their explanations and then we'll look up reality. Let's just see.
So what's the disconnect and what does it teach us? Let's ask daughter of Jordan Peterson and podcast host Mikhaila Peterson. Mikhaila, thank you very much for being here. So let's start with that question. Why are less men participating in the workforce?
Fewer men. I'll see myself out.
I think there's a number of reasons. I think the increase in mental illness plays a role. So 50% of people will be diagnosed with a mental illness at some point in their lifetime. And that's got to contribute to men dropping out of the workforce.
Has it got to? It seems likely that it would. I wouldn't phrase it like that. It's got to sounds like you're kind of making it up whilst also trying to sound like you 100% know this thing to be true. And again, why are mental health problems higher than usual at the moment? Global pandemic. COVID. It's a massive contributor to that. I feel like for some reason, do you know what? I think it's probably because a lot of right-wing news considered COVID and the restrictions placed on it and vaccines and stuff kind of part of a big conspiracy. A lot of them were very anti-vaccine, were very anti-COVID measures. So maybe that is why the obvious elephant in the room of COVID here is going unspoken. Could be that.
But the other things that could possibly contribute would be the media's portrayal of men for the last 20 years. They show men as these bumbling fools, and that's got to be hard on men's confidence.
Again, that's gotta be something. It just sounds like she's pulling stuff out of her ass. Okay, the media's portrayal of men as bumbling fools. In sitcoms and stuff are very stereotypical with their portrayals of everyone. You often get a dad character that's kind of a bumbling idiot, like a Simpsons kind of thing. Maybe I'm naive or I don't watch as much as I used to, or I don't watch as much mainstream media as maybe I should to have an understanding of this. I can't think of a particular, one particular portrayal of men in media or women. I don't really see a repeating pattern of how people are portrayed by gender in the last 20 years, except for kind of obvious stereotypes in stuff that, like I said, like sitcoms and stuff like that relies more on stereotypes. Maybe I'm just missing something. I feel like I'm missing the bumbling idiot thing. It makes me think that maybe Mikhaila has watched a lot of sitcoms and The Simpsons. I don't know. If you're a man and you have felt misrepresented as a bumbling fool by the media, let me know. Maybe give me some examples to help me out.
Generationally. And then I think one thing that people don't talk about at all is the birth control pill. And I think that's majorly impacting relationships between men and women negatively. So women, and this has been shown to be true, women choose more feminine men when they're on the pill. And
Hold on. It is true that studies tend to show that women's choice in partner in a study or whatever is different at different times of the months, and so there's probably an influence of hormones and stuff. So it stands to reason by that logic that it would extend to things like the pill. Let's see. This study found that women who chose their partners when they were on the pill reported less sexual attraction, less sexual arousal, and less sexual adventurousness than women who had chosen their partners when they were not on the pill. Later longitudinal studies found similar patterns. Specifically, they found that all of these women reported women who chose their partners when they were on the pill and then later came off it reported decreased sexual satisfaction after going off the pill. It sounds like hormones like estrogen affect general sexuality and sexual attraction and things like that. And so women who choose a partner when they have a certain level of hormones, whatever, when their hormones change, they find that they want something different, which is interesting. I'll leave a link to this article down below, but it's the one talking about these studies. It makes some good points as well, that being on the pill might increase your risk of some types of relationship problems, but it dramatically decreases your risk of others. For example, needing to get married out of financial necessity due to pregnancy, grants women the opportunity to take their time in finding the right partner, allows them to meet their career goals and be less financially dependent on men. These things increase women's ability to find satisfying relationships. So yeah, it's interesting. It looks like, it's the same kind of hormonal effects that other studies have found. I guess I'm struggling to see how that applies to men in the workforce, but maybe Mikhaila will explain it in a second. Give me a second. Let me wind back.
For some reason, people shown to be true. Women choose more feminine men when they're on the pill. And for some reason, people aren't talking about that. That's crazy. That could impact people generationally easily.
I think that may be a slight exaggeration of the effects found. It's important to talk about how medication can affect your life and things in it, and I agree that it should be talked about more. But maybe we tone down on the language a little bit, because I don't think it's as extreme as maybe she's making it sound.
So it's almost as if it's great. It's really fascinating. So if as women get more independent and are in the workforce, does that mean men feel less valued as a result? And so consequentially, those types of tough jobs or being in the labor force is not as significant as it was before?
I don't know. I think that
Plus 10 points to Mikhaila for saying, I don't know, in response to a question. Everyone who's comfortable saying, I don't know to something, love you, keep doing it. If you don't know the answer, don't just pretend. Say I don't know. It tends to be that it's probably, especially people who are like podcasters and influencers in like a very conservative sphere or whatever, they tend to be a bit more aggressive in their knowing of things. And it's just nice to hear. That's why it's nice to hear them say I don't know.
people think that the problem is women in the workforce. And I don't actually think the issue is women in the workforce. I think it's more likely that birth control is playing a role and impact.
But how? How is birth control playing an impact on men in the workforce? I just don't understand, Mikhaila.
The relationships between men and women negatively, more than women being in the workforce. And that's not even a problem we can solve.
Because families aren't forming and people are staying single longer, and so roles don't develop in ways that traditionally had.
I still don't understand how that would... Is the idea that there would be more single men then? But then surely there would be more men in the workforce because there are fewer that are like stay-at-home dads and things like that.
Fortify both men and women.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in order to have children, women need to feel comfortable and safe with a masculine man. Otherwise, why are they going to want to have kids?
I don't think... Okay, look, I don't want to disparage anybody's masculinity, but I know plenty of non-masculine dads, okay? They're just as competent. Women don't exclusively want to have children with a masculine man. Maybe that is a trend, but it's not across the board. I just want to throw that out there in case you feel like you're not a masculine man. Don't worry, you can still be a great dad, okay? Poor men. This is supposed to be us on the side of men, but all the stereotypes and stuff, I think this just goes to show how harmful those stereotypes are to men. Like, any man that doesn't fulfill the stereotype that, like, this type of media thinks that they should, suddenly they're not the kind of men that women want. They're not the kind of men that women want to have children with. They're not the kind of men that are going to succeed in the workforce. That sucks, and it's not true.
And so we have women on birth control choosing feminine men and then not wanting to have children. And this is in the literature. This isn't a conspiracy theory. You can look in the scientific papers. So,
but then what I just don't understand, and tell me if I've just completely missed it and I'm just being an idiot, but I just feel like she's not explained how that translates to men leaving the workforce. Is she because the whole topic was that men have dropped out of the workforce, is that men in this time period between 25 and 50 something, I can't remember, are 54, are not in the workforce in 2022. Probably due to COVID, but we'll check in a minute. Like, I don't understand how women choosing not to have children or, you know, going on the pill and maybe choosing more feminine men, I don't understand how that relates to men in the workforce. I just don't get it. I need it explained to me, please.
So I think that plays a major role.
And then men feel less valuable, and when you feel less valuable, you're less likely to work as hard as you did in the past, especially when those toxic jobs aren't seen as positively as they were in the past.
What? So if you think you're less valued for doing a job, you're going to work less hard, to get a job? I don't understand. I do think, and I think this is a good thing, when they talk about like traditionally masculine roles and labor work and stuff like that, they tend to talk about stuff that is a bit more dangerous, hard graft, you know, long hours, uncomfortable kind of work. And I think fewer people are probably willing to do those things. And I think that's good. And I think the more modern we get, the more we kind of automate more dangerous jobs and things like that, which is always a plus side, because the fewer people doing dangerous things, the better, the fewer people we lose. So maybe that's a part of it. I don't understand how that relates to women taking the birth control pill. I just don't. I don't understand the correlation here. I just think these things are completely unrelated. I think for some reason, Mikhaila Peterson is really worried about, well, not for some reason, because of reasons like she talked about, the studies she talked about, which are kind of fair enough, that your choices might be different on the birth control pill versus off, which is worth knowing and thinking about if you do take whatever, and this is kind of the case for a lot of medication, not just birth control, but it is important to know that sort of thing, and it's valuable to study that. I don't understand how this even remotely relates to the question. I don't understand why she's been brought on this show. They could have brought her on to talk about the birth control pill, and maybe they could have had a valuable discussion and shared some real information and stuff, but because we're trying really hard to make it link to men in the workforce, it's just kind of nothing. I don't really, like, there could have been something here, but there kind of isn't. And the reporter, it doesn't even say his name. Everyone will yell at me in the comments. This guy is sort of he's having to poke her for, and so because of that, men feel less valued, and that's why, like, he's having to make up the reasons because Mikhaila's not giving them, and his reasons are just conjured out of his imagination, and they still don't make sense as to why men wouldn't be in the workforce at all. I just don't get it. Let's wrap this up.
Fascinating. There's a lot to it.
Oh,
go ahead. Last
definitely.
Word.
Yeah. No, definitely. The fact that masculinity is now seen as toxic means that the people that...
No. Okay, look. I think he's probably referring to toxic masculinity, and that's not saying that all masculinity is toxic. It's saying that there are certain behaviours that are considered sort of traditionally masculine that are toxic. Toxic masculinity refers to things like violence, misogyny, emotional illiteracy. I'll drop a link down below that explains it more, but it definitely does not just mean... Toxic masculinity doesn't mean masculinity is toxic. It means there are traits traditionally applied to masculinity that are toxic. They are not things that exclusively hurt women, they are things that hurt men as well. They are just toxic traits that have been passed through society and are associated with masculinity. Doesn't mean that being masculine is toxic. There's nobody who talks about toxic masculinity is saying that manly men are evil and bad, and if I see you chopping wood, I'm gonna call the police. I couldn't think of a good example, but just to clarify, doesn't mean masculinity is bad.
women are attracted to, masculine men, are seen as toxic. And that's just confusing everyone. It's confusing men because they don't want to be masculine because they don't think that's what women like. And then...
Which, if that's true, citation needed, but if that's true, it's a good sign that you should never try to adapt your personality to what you think people will like. You should do what feels right to you. If there are like big manly men out there that love, you know, chopping wood and fishing trips with the boys and wrestling or whatever, they shouldn't take up knitting and choir and stuff because they think it'll attract more women. And I don't think most people do things like that. I don't think men are dropping out of the workforce because they think that working is too masculine and women don't want masculine. You know, I think there's just a lot of reaching being done here, and I don't get it.
And it's confusing women because they don't have anyone to be attracted to. It's a disaster.
There's no one left to be attracted to. Oh no. See, I'm safe because I can't take birth control, so I chose my partner while I wasn't on it. So I found one of the last remaining masculine men. Or my partner is actually more feminine, and that's why I don't want kids. Who knows? There could be all sorts going on a subconscious level that I don't understand. There's not no one to be attracted to. If you're a woman and you are more attracted to traditionally masculine men, there are plenty. Look at the popularity of some of and a lot of them turn out very toxic, like Andrew Tate and people like that. Look at the popularity of like reclaiming masculinity and stuff like that right now. There's plenty of masculine men to go around for women who want them. I just think this is all a bit apocalyptic and kind of weird. Like, there are societal trends in gender and, you know, the sort of archetype will change over time. And we have been trending a bit more neutral, sort of like the spectrum. More people are sort of falling in the middle of femininity and masculinity. And that's just how it is. But for people who are slightly more outliers of whatever current trend is popular, there's still people for you to date. It's not like there's like we woke up one day and we're like, right, today we've decided as a society that masculine men are bad and they should be banned. And women who like them are like, oh, I'm not married yet. I'm gonna have to marry some sort of feminine man and that's gonna ruin our relationship and he's going to drop out of the workforce. This is all a bit weird, like weird doomsayer kind of stuff.
Disaster. Mikhaila Peterson, thank you so much for breaking that down.
It's a disaster.
Really interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you know what? Some of that was interesting because some of it was true. And there was a bit where Mikhaila said, I don't know, but I think this is probably contributing and that's fine. I'm happy with that. I would now like to look up, so this is specific to the USA, which might be part of why I haven't seen or don't resonate with the kind of things she's talking about. It might be because it's happening in the USA and not over here. Let's just look at men in the workforce in the USA 2022. Disturbing rise of the NILFs. Oh my god, I just had to go and cough a lot and drink some water and I've put another brew on. I just nearly died because of the frayed NILFs for men not in the labour force. I don't know why that tickled me so much, but it nearly ended my life. So COVID likely reduced the availability. Oh my god, I can't speak. COVID likely reduced the availability of the US workforce by as much as 2.6% in 2022. Unemployment is at 3.7%. Close to a 50-year low. In 2022, the employment rate for men in the US stood at 65.5%. This was an increase from the previous year, but has yet to return to pre-pandemic levels. I still think it's a mistake not to talk about the fact, even if you think COVID is a big conspiracy, it's a mistake not to talk about the fact that that is a huge impact on the workforce. It's so bizarre. Like, for me, I would be as confident in saying that I think it was probably COVID that was the main factor in that, as Mikhaila is in saying it was probably birth control. And I guess we both probably think the other's a little bit crazy. There's a Guardian article here that says, our estimates suggest COVID-19 illnesses have reduced the US labour force by approximately 500,000 people. Long COVID keeping 2 to 4 million Americans out of the workforce. That was 2022 as well. There's definitely, like I keep calling it an elephant in the room, like it's definitely a big part of this discussion. Oh, some gender disparities widened in the US workforce over COVID-19, with greater job losses among women than men. Hold on. Overall, the number of women 25 and older in the labour force has fallen 1.3% since the third quarter of 2019, similar to the 1.1% decline of men in the labour force. The labour force decline has been greater for women than men from 2019 to 2021. So I suppose that's maybe Fox is specifically talking about 2022, but did they really lose like 7 million people in 2020, like just men in 2022? A new gender gap surfaces. Men recouped all 10 million of their vanished jobs, but women, who lost 11.9 million positions, are still 100,000 shy of their pre-COVID mark. Women are struggling to regain lost ground in the labour force. I'm very confused. This seems very contradictory to what they were talking about The industries that were hit hardest through COVID, restaurants, education, healthcare, tend to employ more women. Oh, so that's basically the opposite of my assumption earlier. I guess I was only thinking of like construction style jobs. I also didn't know that restaurants, I knew education was more skewed towards a female workforce. Restaurants, I didn't know. Healthcare, I forgot, is skewed more towards women. Yeah, interesting. So the industries that were kind of hit hardest by COVID employed more women, but this is opposite. I'm confused. Here there's a paper that said women mostly stayed in the workforce as the pandemic unfolded, which was not what was predicted. This analysis, again I'll leave this down below, this analysis from the American Time Use Survey, the Current Population Survey and other sources reveals that education, not gender, was the main distinction between people who stayed in their jobs and those who did not, which again makes sense to me because the kind of jobs that require more high education, stuff like that, is more stuff that could be done, say, remotely or wouldn't be impacted quite as hard, whereas stuff like frontline services and things would be hit a lot harder. So that makes sense to me. For women in particular, the difference was striking. Those without a college degree left their jobs almost at twice the rate of those who had one. Women with college degrees were more likely to have jobs that allowed them time to work from home. The economic impact of the pandemic fell heavily on Black and Hispanic women, mothers of young children, caregivers for parents, and women who did not have the option of remote work. This is interesting. Black women were likelier to work in service occupations before the pandemic and therefore were likelier to be furloughed or laid off in its early months. They're also more likely to face illness or care responsibilities at home, making a return to work more difficult. Interesting. So, at least from my vague, quick research, it seems like, yes, the unspoken element in this discussion, COVID, was probably the main factor in a reduction of people, including men, in the workforce. It seems that it hit women just as hard, if not harder, in terms of reclaiming jobs in the USA and stuff like that. If there's stuff that I've just somehow missed, like it mostly, when I was looking this up, the stuff that I found like one or two things that seemed to reflect this Fox News article. It was either like similar, media organizations and it was hidden behind a paywall, or it was just this article. So if I'm missing something, please do let me know, but it kind of feels like they're wrong. In conclusion, Fox News not hitting the nail on the head, not on the money, unimpressed in this reporting. And I think that Mikhaila Peterson's guesses as to why men are leaving the workforce are wrong, are incorrect. But mostly I blame Fox for having her on as a guest for a discussion that she's not qualified to talk about. Clearly what she wants to talk about at the moment is the effect of birth control on women's choices and things like that. And I think that is perfectly fucking valid. And I think that she should be free to do that as much as she wants, wherever she wants. I just think it's very bizarre to try and inject that into this conversation, which just doesn't seem to be related. I can't find a correlation here. Like, I can't find a causative link between these two things. It's more, and you get this a lot in kind of anti-feminist sort of, this kind of anti-feminist sort of media, where they take two things that have happened and say, and therefore they're completely related and that's the reason. They'll, say things like, people are less happy in this year and fewer people are married, and therefore that's why fewer people are happy because they're not married. They'll just like take, that's just like a weird example, but they'll take two things that are true and just assume that they're related with no evidence. And I think this is just an example of that. I don't think more women being on birth control, and remember there are different types of birth control, I don't think more women being on birth control is impacting in a big way the number of men leaving the workforce in the USA. I think that is mostly due to COVID reducing the number of jobs and people not being able to reclaim their jobs, etc., etc. And then a lot of it, I think Mikhaila was right in pointing out mental health. Again, I think a large part of that is COVID. COVID had a huge impact on people's mental health. That is probably affecting people's desire to be in the workforce and people's ability to join the workforce. There's a lot of interesting discussion to be had on this topic. I just think they've gone in a really weird, stupid direction here, and it's kind of like a waste. Like they could have They could have had an interesting discussion, but because it's Fox, what they've done is they've tried to find the most clickbaity, knee-jerk reaction thing so that, like, right-wing men will see that and be like, yeah, they're ruining society for us manly men. It's a disaster. It's just not true. Good old Fox. Well, there we go. Let me know your thoughts down below. I will leave a link to everything that I talked about. What a strange one. What am I going to call this video? I don't know. Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you joining me for these bizarre little conversations. It is interesting to hear what such a mainstream, popular service is telling people as though it's fact. By interesting, I sort of mean depressing. Yeah, leave your thoughts down below. Do give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Check out some of my other content. Apparently that is what the YouTube algorithm likes right now. They like if you click onto my other content from this. So check out the end screen and maybe click on one of those things, or click something down over there, or maybe over there. I'm not actually sure what. Am I mirrored? I don't know. Professionalism. Do subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the videos that I make. You can check out my behind the scenes vloggy casual channel at Emma Thorne Extra. I also have a gaming channel because I love my video games, and it's just a bit of a light reprieve from all of this news political nonsense there's no birth control or labour force worries on my gaming channel, Little Doug Gaming. Go and check it out for light fun. I also have a Twitch where I play video games 3 times a week, and we have a lot of viewer interaction. It's very fun. It's very nice, wholesome, chatty place where we have a good time. I am over there at Emma Little Duck. One of the best ways to support this channel and the stuff that I make is through Patreon. You can check it out at patreon.com/EmmaThorneVideos. There's some nice little perks. You can check those out. We also have channel memberships on this channel now. It's only a little thing. There's 1 tier. You get some cute emotes with my dumb face and stuff like that. And you get comment priority, which means that every time I check my comments, which is about once a week, I will always check my channel member comments first and react to those before I look at any others. I sometimes don't look at any others because I'm stressed out, and nothing stresses you out more than the YouTube comments section. So if you're a channel member, I'll look at your comments. Thank you so much for watching. Before we go, I must give a big old shout out to my giant chickens and colossal quackers over on Patreon. Have yourselves a very lovely week, and I will see you really soon.